Congressman, that judge that you just quoted did not say he was not a member of MS-13. Who did say that he was a member of MS-13 was law enforcement officers that encountered this individual.
Yeah, he knows that. This is a Fourth Circuit judge. He knows all of what the evidence is, and he's saying if that evidence...
So
you're not going to commit to follow this order. You won't commit to follow this court order.
By the way, he identified
Madam Secretary,
himself.
I reclaim my time. Stop filibustering. Stop filibustering.
By gang members of MS-13.
Will you give Mr. Abrego Garcia the due process that the Supreme Court and Judge Wilkinson has required you to give him?
Abrego Garcia is an El Salvador resident who is in his home country. If he were to come back to this country, he would be immediately removed again.
How do you know?
He has received and been treated appropriately,
so
sir, and he is not.
How can you say he's been treated appropriately if the Supreme Court has ruled 9-0? 9-0 that he hasn't been treated appropriately. Why is your opinion better and have more authority than the Supreme Court?
Investigators, 2 judges, an immigration court that all said he was MS-13 and was removed from this country.
But you understand, that is you saying that. That is you saying that.
That is them saying that. This
no.
is investigators and law
that is
enforcement
you making that
in the case
determination.
they built against him. If you don't
the
trust our law
court
enforcement
has considered all that. The judge has considered all that, Madam Secretary. And if you would be quiet, because I'm reclaiming my time.
Patriots, buckle up, because what you're about to hear will make your blood boil. I'm talking about one of the most disgraceful displays of misplaced priorities we've seen in Congress in recent memory. Dan Goldman, a so-called representative of the people, just went toe-to-toe with Secretary Kristi Noem. Not to defend our citizens, not to fight for American safety, but to defend the rights of an MS-13 gang member. That's right, a thug, a criminal, a foreign national who, by all accounts, has terrorized communities. And somehow, in the twisted minds of the left, he's the victim now. This isn't just political theater. It's a full-blown attack on common sense, the rule of law, and the safety of every law-abiding American citizen. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't about due process anymore. It's about liberal Democrats putting foreign criminals above American families. It's about activist politicians like Dan Goldman weaponizing the Constitution to give known gang members a second chance to re-enter our country, while everyday Americans struggle to get justice in their own communities. Here's what we know.
I now recognize Mr. Goldman for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to go back to Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, Madam Secretary. But my first question for you is a pretty simple one. It's basic civics. Which branch of government does the Constitution give the authority to interpret what the law is, the judiciary or the executive branch?
Sir, going forward, the interpretation of the law, you make the laws in this body. The judicial branch makes sure that they have integrity and they're applied properly to individuals.
So okay, so I'm just going to take that as the judiciary branch. Now, let's focus for a second on what the judiciary branch has said about this case. We know the Supreme Court has said 9-0 that, notwithstanding your statements under oath here today, that Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was afforded due process, he was in fact not afforded due process, because then if he were, you would have seen the withholding order that did not permit him to be deported to El Salvador. Now you allege, and I guess the Attorney General alleges, that he's a member of MS-13. That may very well be the case. And if he is, now that that is a foreign terrorist organization, certainly the immigration laws would allow him, and in fact require him, to be deported. I certainly would support that. But the problem that we have here is what you allege, what Ms. Green alleges, what the Attorney General alleges, is not the judiciary. You don't get to decide whether or not he is an MS-13 member. And you don't have to take my word for it, because Judge Wilkinson, a Fourth Circuit judge, very conservative, addressed this argument. He said, the government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident in its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Will you commit right now to give Mr. Abrego Garcia that process where you can prove your allegation that he is a member of MS-13?
Congressman, that judge that you just quoted did not say he was not a member of MS-13. Who did say that he was a member of MS-13 was law enforcement officers that encountered this individual.
Yeah, he knows
We
that.
had
This is a Fourth Circuit judge. He knows all of what the evidence is, and he's saying if that evidence. So you're not going to commit to follow this order. You won't commit to follow this court order.
By the way, he identified
Madam Secretary,
himself.
I reclaim my time. Stop filibustering. Stop filibustering.
By gang members of MS-13.
Will you give Mr. Abrego Garcia the due process that the Supreme Court and Judge Wilkinson has required you to give him?
Abrego Garcia is an El Salvador resident who is in his home country. If he were to come back to this country, he would be immediately removed again.
How do you know?
He has received and been treated appropriately,
So
sir, and he is not.
How can
in
you
this
say he's
country
been
anymore.
treated appropriately if the Supreme Court has ruled 9-0? 9-0 that he hasn't been treated appropriately. Why is your opinion better and have more authority than the Supreme Court?
Investigators, 2 judges, an immigration court that all said he was MS-13 and was removed from this country.
But you understand, that is you saying that. That is you saying that.
That is them saying that. This
No.
is investigators and law
That is
enforcement
you
officers
making that
in the case they
determination.
built against him. If you don't
The
trust our law
court
enforcement
has
officers
considered all that.
and
The judge has
investigators,
considered all that,
then
Madam
who do you
Secretary.
trust if you
And
don't
if you would be
trust judges
quiet because I'm reclaiming my time, you are not following this court order. But let's focus on the court order, because this opinion also says that to facilitate, which the Supreme Court is requiring, is an active verb. It requires that steps be taken. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia to allow him to get due process?
Abrego Garcia is in his home country.
What
If he were to come
steps
back,
have
your
you
advocacy-
taken?
If your continued advocacy for him were to...
I'm not advocating for him.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
advocating for a
Absolutely.
court order, Madam
Gone to the
Secretary.
mat for this
The
man
court
who
order
has terrorized
says
people
that
in
you
traffic
must take
with human
steps
beings.
to follow the court order. You are here under oath. What steps have you taken to return Mr. Abrego Garcia pursuant to this court order?
It's got to be extremely discouraging to be one of your constituents. To see you fight for a terrorist like this and not fight for them is extremely alarming to me.
I'm fighting for due process, and that's under the Constitution.
Gentleman's
and you
time
should
has
fight too for
expired.
due process.
The gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize...
Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an illegal immigrant, deported because law enforcement and immigration courts determined he was a member of MS-13. For those of you who might not know, MS-13 is a brutal, transnational gang. They don't just commit crimes, they terrorize entire neighborhoods with murders, extortion, and human trafficking. And what does Dan Goldman do? He lectures the Secretary of Homeland Security about due process and court orders, claiming that the Supreme Court ruled this criminal didn't get a fair shot. Oh please, did you hear that? That's the arrogance of the left on full display. When Secretary Noem tried to explain that this man was already deported, already adjudicated, Goldman couldn't take it. He shut her down, claiming he had the moral high ground. Let me tell you something, folks. This isn't about legality anymore. This is about ideology. The radical left doesn't see MS-13 as the enemy. They see you and me, the patriots, the law-abiding taxpayers, as the problem. Let's ask a question the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Why is Dan Goldman more concerned about the legal rights of a foreign gang member than he is about American victims of MS-13? What about the families that have lost children to gang violence? What about the communities destroyed by illegal trafficking and cartel influence? What about ICE officers who risk their lives every day to keep these thugs out? Goldman doesn't seem to care. He's too busy grandstanding for the C-SPAN cameras, turning a terrorist into a martyr and accusing Kristi Noem, who is doing her job, of violating the Constitution. Let me be crystal clear. If someone is in this country illegally, and they are confirmed to be part of a violent criminal organization, they don't deserve to be here. Period. They don't get a red carpet and a taxpayer-funded legal crusade. They get one thing, deportation. And if a court has a bureaucratic objection to that, fine, take it up with the courts. But don't sit there and tell me that we owe MS MS-13 due process when our own citizens are being treated like second class in their own country. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. Why are Democrats constantly pushing for open borders and leniency for violent criminals? The answer is simple. They want power. Illegal immigration means more people dependent on government, more chaos in red states, and more votes down the line. It's not about justice, it's about control. Dan Goldman doesn't care about due process. He cares about undermining immigration enforcement and demonizing anyone who tries to secure our borders. You tell me, patriots, when did it become controversial to stand up for American safety? When did defending our families become less important than coddling foreign gang members? Dan Goldman's rant wasn't a defense of the Constitution. It was a betrayal of the American people. And if we let this mindset spread, there won't be a country left to defend. This is why Right View Nation exists, to shine a light on this madness. The mainstream media won't call this out, but we will. We're not going to let liberal elites sell out our country, our sovereignty, and our future. It's time to say enough is enough. No more protecting criminals. No more putting Americans last. And no more apologizing for being right. God bless you. God bless our Constitution. And God bless the United States of America.